I was sipping my morning tea, enjoying a rare moment of quiet, when my phone buzzed. A video message from an unknown number. Curious, I opened it. It was Mrs. Daisy, the owner of the corner store down the street, whom I hadn't seen in years since moving away. Just her name brought back so many memories. The video started with a familiar church, the place where I used to go to midnight mass with my grandmother every Christmas Eve. The camera slowly panned to two figures standing at the podium. My heart skipped a beat. It was my parents. My mother was wearing a black dress, her face pale with makeup, trying to squeeze out tears. My father stood beside her, stiff as a statue, his hands trembling as he held a piece of paper. Behind them was a casket, and next to it was a large framed portrait of me, surrounded by fresh flowers. I froze. This couldn't be happening. My father's voice echoed from the phone, choked with emotion. She was always a troubled girl, but we loved her. We did everything we could. My eyes blurred. My father was reading a eulogy, reading my own obituary. Though she left this world far too young, we pray her soul finally finds peace. I wasn't dead. I was standing in my apartment, completely awake, breathing, but my whole body was shaking. This couldn't be real. I dragged the timeline back to the beginning, watching the video over and over. Their faces didn't change, their voices didn't tremble with grief. They were calm, controlled, like they were performing a carefully rehearsed play. I gripped the edge of the kitchen counter, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. What the hell is going on? I whispered, why are they doing this? I hadn't spoken to them in years, not since they cut off all contact, disowning me as if I were a stain on their family name. But to hold a funeral, to declare me dead. The more I watched, the colder I felt. My mother mentioned some tragic accident. There was no accident. My father talked about my final years spent in isolation. They knew that wasn't true. So why? Why were they doing this? I sat down slowly, the phone still playing the video. At the end, the camera panned to familiar faces, distant relatives, family friends, even my childhood piano teacher. Everyone was there, dressed in black, believing I was gone, dead. And no one, not a single person, had even tried to contact me. I watched the video again, just to make sure I wasn't imagining things. But the truth was crystal clear. They hadn't just erased me, they had buried me alive. And in that moment, one thing became absolutely clear. This wasn't a mistake, it was a choice. It wasn't always like this. There was a time when I believed family was protection, loyalty. That illusion shattered 3 years ago, the day I was thrown out of my own life like a piece of trash swept under the rug. The truth was, I hadn't stolen any money, it was my younger sister, Lily, the golden child of the family, the one who could do no wrong. Lily had embezzled nearly $80,000 from the family's business account. She lived recklessly, addicted to a lifestyle she couldn't afford. When the numbers didn't add up and the books were flagged for fraud, my parents needed a scapegoat, and I was the perfect fit. I still remember vividly the words my mother hissed in my ear in the kitchen, better to lose one ruined daughter than two. My father didn't even look at me when he said, "You've humiliated us. You're no longer our daughter." The next morning, I left, with no money, no explanation to anyone, just silence. I tried calling, texting, sending letters, but it was useless. My phone number was blocked. When I reached out to close family friends, they suddenly stopped replying. One by one, doors that had always been open to me slammed shut. I became a ghost, not just to them but to the entire world that had once known me. Eventually, I did what broken people often do. I left, moved abroad, got a job in a cafe, changed my phone number, and learned to live quietly. I didn't post anything online, I rarely even said my name. But even then, deep down, I held on to hope. Hope that someday, someone, anyone, would call and ask if I was okay, tell me it had all been a mistake. That day never came. Instead, something worse happened. Last year, I tried to renew my old email account but couldn't. When I contacted support, I was informed that the account had been deactivated due to a report of user deceased. My name had been marked as dead in their system, officially, digitally, completely. They hadn't just disowned me, they had erased me. I couldn't sleep that night. The video played on a loop in my mind, their voices, their fake grief, my face next to a casket I had never seen. My own funeral without me. Something wasn't right. So, I started digging. First, I called Aunt Sarah, my mother's older sister. We hadn't spoken in years, but she always used to sneak me candy at family gatherings. She answered on the second ring. "Hello, Aunt Sarah, it's me, it's Maya." Silence. Then a long beep. She had hung up. I called again, my number was blocked. Next, I tried my cousins. One sent me a thumbs up emoji and never replied again. Another asked, "Is this some kind of sick joke?" No one believed it was me, except for one person, my youngest cousin, Sam, the one who always looked up to me when we were kids. He texted back hesitantly, "Maya? Are you really alive?" "Yes. I need to know the truth." "What did they tell everyone?" The typing bubble blinked for a long time, then he replied, "They said you died in a car crash overseas 3 years ago." My heart sank. They had made up a whole story, said it happened while I was traveling, that it was too late to bring me home, cremation, closed casket. I nearly dropped my phone. There had never been a car crash. I had never even owned a car while abroad. Something inside me snapped. I pulled out all the documents I had, passport, entry stamps, rental agreements, identification papers. I had never been in an accident, I had never gone missing. So, I checked the Public Records Office online. And there it was, Maya Dekwa, date of death July 16th, cause, road accident, status, deceased, certificate ID, ARF 91327. They had forged it. They had made me legally dead. I stared at the screen, frozen. This wasn't grief, this wasn't denial, this was a cover-up. But what were they hiding that was worth burying me alive? I should have stopped digging, but once you realize your own family has buried you alive, you have to know why. I found my answer in a place I hadn't looked in years, Lily's Instagram. She had made her profile public again. And there it was, a glittering carousel of images, white roses, champagne fountains, a diamond the size of a small planet. Lily's wedding. Everyone was there, Aunt Sarah smiling as if she hadn't hung up on me, my cousins clinking glasses, even great-uncle George, who lived in another country and never showed up for anything. But not me. Not one mention, not one photo, not even a caption wishing Maya could have been there. Caption, I was gone, erased as if I had never existed. Until I looked closer. In one of the photos taken at the reception, there was a speech in progress, a toast. Her husband stood smiling, and next to him was my father, holding a wine glass, speaking into a microphone, grinning under the caption, to the one daughter who always made us proud. And that was it. Not just forgotten, replaced. Curious, I searched the family business registry. A few clicks, and my blood ran cold. The trust fund my grandparents had left for me, college money, startup money, everything had been transferred to Lily 6 months after my death, legally and quietly. She hadn't mourned me, she had profited from me. I stared at her smiling face, her white dress sparkling in the sun, and it hit me. My sister hadn't just replaced me, she had erased me. Enough was enough. If they wanted me dead, they were about to see just how alive I really was. The next morning, I walked into a law office with a stack of documents and a fire in my chest. Passport, entry stamps, employment contracts, tax filings, lease agreements, flight records, unshakable, unforgivable proof. The young attorney across the desk looked stunned. You're challenging your own death? I slid the forged certificate across the table. I'm not dead, but I plan to haunt them. He blinked, nodded slowly. Then we'll start with a fraud complaint and a motion to revoke the declaration of death. It will take time. Legally, I don't have time, I cut in, because apparently, I have a memorial service this Sunday. He looked up. I didn't flinch. Earlier that day, a message had come through from an unknown number, just one line: "They are holding a memorial for you next Sunday at St. Albans Church." No name, no explanation, but I knew the church, I knew the address. It was real, and so was my plan. I stood at the window of my apartment that night, the city lights glittering below me like sparks waiting for gasoline. They had dressed me in lies, buried me in silence, pretended I never existed. But now, I had a stage. Let them grieve, let them cry, let them perform. And when the curtain lifts, let's give them a funeral to remember. St. Albans Church had never looked so full. Cars lined the street like a parade of grief. The heavy doors of the church stood open just long enough to let in mourners dressed in black, weeping, whispering, hugging each other as if tragedy had touched them personally. I watched from across the street, black coat, sunglasses, still invisible. It was surreal, like watching a play about a character who looked like me, sounded like me, but wasn't me at all. Inside, the performance had begun. The organ played something slow and tragic. Candles flickered beneath my photo, the same one they used on the fake obituary. I remembered the day it was taken. I was smiling for real back then. My father stood at the pulpit, face solemn, voice just loud enough to carry. She was troubled, but we loved her. She lost her way, and though we couldn't reach her, we never stopped praying she'd come back to us. My mother sat in the front row, dabbing tears with lace-trimmed tissues, as if she had practiced for weeks. Her sobs were delicate, perfect. And Lily, she stood next to her, pearls clutched as if they were keeping her heart from falling apart. My sister, Maya, was complicated, but she was mine. I wish I could have said goodbye. A lie wrapped in a tear, tied with a bow. I stepped closer to the door, just enough to hear it. The priest raised his hand solemnly. May she rest in peace. I exhaled slowly. Not yet. The show was still going on, but the main character hadn't arrived. Let us now stand for a moment of silence. The priest's voice echoed through the church like a final curtain call. Everyone rose to their feet, heads bowed, eyes closed, hands folded politely over their hearts. And in that breathless pause, I pushed open the doors. The sound was sharp, deliberate, two heavy oak doors groaning open like a tomb splitting in half. The cold light from outside poured into the church, spilling down the aisle like a spotlight. And I stepped into it, slowly, deliberately, each heel strike on the marble floor echoed like a gunshot. Click, 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 the silence cracked open. Gasps. A few people turned, then more. Whispers bloomed like wildfire. Is that, it can't be. A child's voice pierced the tension. Mom, isn't that her? I took off my sunglasses. My eyes met my mother's, wide, disbelieving, terrified. Her face went pale, her lips trembled, then she crumpled, a hard, theatrical faint. Her body dropped as if she had rehearsed it. My father's mouth hung open, his wine glass slipping from his fingers, shattering against the pew. Lily. Lily locked eyes with me and froze, her jaw clenched, her pearl necklace twisting in her grip. A half-full glass of champagne tumbled from her hand and splashed across her perfect white shoes. The priest, stunned, took a step back. I kept walking. Every eye in the building followed my steps, as if they weren't sure if they were seeing a ghost or a reckoning. And maybe I was both. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. My presence was the thunder after the lie, the consequence they prayed would never come. By the time I reached the front of the aisle, the room was holding its breath. I turned, faced them all, and smiled. Let the truth begin. I stood at the front of the church, beneath my own portrait, the same photo they used to eulogize and bury me. I turned to face the crowd, dozens of eyes staring at me as if I had risen from the grave. Good, let them look. I cleared my throat once and spoke into the silence. I heard I died, but I'm here to correct the story. A ripple went through the room. No one moved. Some had phones in their hands but forgot to blink, let alone hit record. There was no accident, no tragic car crash overseas, no closed casket because the body was unrecognizable. I pulled a folder from my coat, thick, stamped, sealed with government marks and international dates. These are my passport stamps, my employment records, tax filings, apartment leases. I've been alive, I've been working, I've been surviving. The only thing I lost was them. I turned to my parents. They told the world I died, faked the documents, filed a certificate. And when I was legally gone, I turned my eyes to Lily, who stood frozen, fingers clenched around her pearls. They transferred everything to her, my trust fund, my inheritance, my life. Lily opened her mouth, tried to speak. I didn't let her. Don't enjoy the house you bought with my money. A murmur rose like thunder behind me. Someone whispered, she's got proof. Another gasped. And then a phone lifted, red dot blinking. Someone was filming. Good, let the world see this funeral for what it really was, not a farewell, a cover-up. You didn't lose a daughter, I said, staring my father down, you threw her away. And now you get to watch her walk back in. The lies were ashes, and I had just lit the match. I turned back one last time. My father's face was pale, my mother still trembling in her seat, Lily hollow, defeated, no pearls to clutch now. You buried me to protect yourselves, I said calmly, but I came back to haunt you with the truth. No more shouting, no more lies, just silence, heavy, final. As I walked out, the church bells began to ring. How fitting, a funeral bell, but this time not for me. I handed the documents to my lawyer, signed the final page, watched the death certificate get torn in half. My legal resurrection was official. An investigation opened into fraud, false reporting, and embezzlement. Let them try to lie now. Sometimes you have to die in their world to be reborn in your own. And this time, I wasn't coming back for forgiveness. I was coming back for freedom.